Wow, this one's almost as big as me. He came from the same country as the last one. I'm not saying the same joke again. Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here, and we've got a bonus video for you this time around. We've got a special Devastator to look at. This one was given to me by my brother at Christmas, so big shout out to him and his channel, Cyclonus150. This is a knockoff of Devastator that was produced by the Chinese company BHX. They've done a version like this one, but they've also did an orange version, which matches the KB Toys exclusive Generation 2 release. This is basically sold as a simple set that includes all 6 Constructicons and 3 extra pieces. We have a pair of hands. As you see, they have a little knob to connect them at the wrist. The fingers can be moved only that far, and the thumb can be folded downwards. It can also be rotated, but really doesn't serve much of a purpose. But basically, you can bend the arms, so bend the hands rather, so they can form a fist. And we also have the gun. Of course, the gun has a couple of special tabs here at the base of it. It lines up with this hole right here underneath the thumb. So you would basically line up one of them, doesn't matter which one, whichever way you want Devastator to be, right-handed or left-handed. Basically lines up and plugs in. Actually, it doesn't plug into that hole. It plugs into one of the bigger holes here in front. So you can have the gun kind of at a raised up angle, or you can go in further. And then that completely hides the post for the hand grip. Either way, that's kind of nice. Gives you some options for display purposes. Alright, we're going to take a look at each one of these guys individually, and we'll compare them next to their Generation 1 counterparts. Alright, first up we have Bone Crusher. Of course, on the left is the Generation 1 original, and then here on the right will be the knockoff. They don't use the exact same shade of green, but the knockoff is done a little closer to the green as to how it appeared in the cartoon, so I guess he's a little more cartoon accurate. But of course, you can also tell that from the way the head is done. And as you can see, the Generation 1 version is only slightly taller than this knockoff one is, so nice to see that the build is still pretty close. But of course, it's also adapted so that it has this part here inside. That'll be the forearm and wrist connector for Devastator. As far as articulation goes, well, you can bend his arm at the elbow 90 degrees, and he does have the swivel at the bicep, despite the fact he does not come with a gun. You can move his arms out at the shoulder about so far. The arms do rotate at the shoulder. You can spread his legs apart into almost a full splits. Yeah, surprise over there, isn't it? G1 version. He does have a thigh cut. You can raise his leg at the hip greater than 90 degrees. You can bend him at the knee 90 degrees. You can also adjust the ankle, but that's more for transforming him than what it would be for posing options. Real briefly here, I'm going to quickly switch G1 Bone Crusher into his alt mode. And then with the help of the instructions, you get weird instructions here. Or at least they're not in Chinese, so you can at least look at the pictures. And on the back side, it's how to turn the vehicles into Devastator. But we'll start here to work on converting our friend Bone Crusher. We start by folding his feet in, like so. And then want us to turn them. They got it drawn the wrong way. They want you should turn it so that the treads face outward and all these slots are inwards. And then you're going to start bending them at the area at his waist so it all folds down. You have to spread the legs out a bit so that they will fold all the way down. Then we fold his head up. And we take his arms. You're going to turn the arms so that they're pointing like an I surrender pose. And then you fold them against the shoulder both times so that they help form the front of the bulldozer. There is a little bit of a post that sticks up, and it should just rest against them. And then, of course, we attach the treads onto the black base underneath and shift the scoop up. And then there we have it. That's the fake Bone Crusher next to the original. And I think in this case, I think the original looks the best out of the two of them. It at least looks a little more complete than what the knockoff version does. Plus, the lack of the roof over the driver's canopy kind of makes it look like it's missing something. But that could just be from the fact I'm used to the older one more than to this modern one. Alright, we'll move right along now. And then now here we have Scavenger. Of course, the biggest difference this time for Scavenger is the fact that the vehicle kibble is more on his chest on the knockoff, whereas on the original, the vehicle kibble ran down his backside. So at least in some ways, this works a little bit better since we've got the digging scoop folded into his chest, whereas on the original, it hangs on his back. And of course, since this one was played with a fair amount, you don't always get it to stay hanging up like that. As for articulation on the fake, well, it's basically the same as with Bone Crusher. The arm can go out so far. You can rotate the arm at the shoulder all the way, bend the arm at the elbow, and it does have the G.I. Joe battle grip with the swivel. You can spread his legs apart into a full splits this time. He does have a bit of a thigh cut going for him. You can raise his leg at the hip 90 degrees, and you can bend his leg at the knee 90 degrees. So even with the slightly compact size, he at least comes with articulation. Unlike his 1980s original. Again, we're taking a quick second here to convert Scavenger into his steam shovel mode. And then now we will do the same for this Scavenger. We fold the feet in, and then turn the legs to the side. And then we do the same thing like with Bone Crusher. The whole of him is supposed to fold under, but it only folds down to here. Then you have to manipulate the legs to fold under completely and attach them, like so. Then we come here and we will raise up the scoop so that it gets out of the way, and then you can fold the head inside. And then this time we take the arms and we fold them out to the sides like so. On the right, for his right hand, you're going to rotate it at the elbow so that it's pointing straight, and then fold it forward. This one, the left elbow, you will bend so it points upwards, and then fold it in, so that way it kind of forms the driver's cab. And then there you have Scavenger all together. And as we were seeing, it does feature a rotating base. This will partially play in for Devastator, but it is a nice detail to have. The only downside to the detail is the articulation on the bucket is limited to this mid-joint and the bucket itself. We really don't get a whole lot of articulation on the lower part. It is a bit stiff. It does look like it can move, but there we go. We are getting it to move. There we go. That's better. So it at least gives you a little bit of play value. And again, while the G1 version does look better, I will give this knockoff some bonus points for at least coming up with a rather clever way to put in the driver's cab on the alt mode. So it's a nice touch. Here we are now with Scrapper, and in some ways Scrapper's a little better than the original in terms of looks, but also a little bad. I mean, they put it so the driver's compartment folds down out of his feet. Not sure how I feel about that, but it is an odd detail that stands out. But I do like how he's a little bulkier, so he definitely looks a little more imposing than the original. Plus, on the original, we never really got any articulation on the payloader's scoop unit. So it always awkwardly sticks out the back. And it does look a little weird. So on this knockoff one, it folds, and it can be folded up to rest on his backside. And that looks a little better. Also gives an intimidating look to him. So I gotta say, this one I do like more than the original. Articulation-wise, you can move his arm up at the shoulder. Of course, his shoulder shifts as well. You can rotate the arm at the shoulder all the way around, but you do have to move it a bit to clear the scoop. You can bend his arm at the elbow 90 degrees, and he does feature a swivel. His legs can move apart into a full splits. He does have a thigh cut. You can raise his leg at the hip 90 degrees, and you can bend his leg at the knee 90 degrees. So he does have some good articulation going for him. Rather good looking toy too, I gotta admit that. For being a knockoff, it does look pretty good. And of course, we quickly turn Scrapper here into his alt mode, and then now we will look at how to do this one, the knockoff. Now, for starters, you take his chest area here, and you're going to slide it upwards to conceal his head. Then, of course, once we've got that, we'll swing the arms up like so, and then you fold them at the shoulder, the inset shoulder down. And of course, they also want you to turn the arms at the elbow, so the open fist will be in here, because the open fist hole will catch on these posts that are just above his hips. As soon as you make sure to flatten everything. Oops, forgot to change it. There we go, popped into place. Okay, we should have had the feet here. The cab should be slid inwards, and then you slide it outwards now. Kind of press the legs together, and then you fold it downwards. Make sure you got it all the way out before you fold it downward. And then we fold the legs up, up, and over. Make a couple of minute adjustments so that it connects. And then we can unfold out the scoop. And as you can also see here, the scoop has extra articulation in the fact that you can swivel it from side to side. Plus, of course, we have a second spot to elevate and move it. Plus, the scoop itself can be shifted. So, again, this version of Scrapper does look pretty good. And then, of course, the driver's compartment on this one is a fully enclosed cab. Whereas on the original, it was just one with a roof over it. So it looks a little more realistic. So again, I'll give them credit on this one. It is a nice update. Now we'll take a look at Hook. And unfortunately, the knockoff one is smaller than the original by a margin. Not a whole lot, but he does have some intricate design work going for him. Since many of you probably saw the parts list and you were kind of surprised that there's no chest plate for the Devastator, but he does have it, and Hook is concealing it. When we get to that part, I will definitely show it to you. You're going to love this one, folks. But all in all, I also like the proportions better on this one than on the Generation 1 version, because, I mean, he's got, almost looks like he's got a shrunken head there on the original, where this one has a little better balance to it. So I gotta say, I do like it more. And again, the articulation, it's the same as what we've covered before with all the other guys so far, so that really isn't going to change much. You do have to kind of watch it here on Hook, since you just saw his waist splits apart too. But again, that'll come in handy for making him into Devastator. There you go, you've seen all the articulation. Pretty much the same we've covered before. Take old Hook here and fold him back up. Of course, also take good care since he is a 40-year-old toy. Certainly don't want to damage him any further. Alright, now for this version of Hook, you take his arms and you're going to fold them backwards, like so. Then you shift the shoulder so that his arms come up against his head. Then we will turn him over. I want you to rotate the arms at the elbow and then fold them down. Basically turn it so his hands are hidden when you fold everything down. Then once they are folded down, you come here to his legs and you will fold them over and press them together. And then there you have it. Hook is in his alternate mode of a crane. And unfortunately, the looks on him aren't as good as they are on the original. One thing to definitely point out is that the knockoff of Hook, he does not have rolling wheels. He has static wheels. So the original one gets to beat him on that by having real wheels. Just unfortunately, he's been played with so much, it's hard to keep the driver's section down to allow him to roll good. Let's try that again. That's better. Alright, then bring out the next one. Now, next up we have Long Haul, and again, the robot mode on the knockoff definitely looks a little better, definitely looks better than the original. But of course, it's also had about 40 years of time to have new engineering done, so let's take that into account as well. But it definitely looks a little better, especially in the terms of how the truck is presented as the body, plus also the head. Since the original, the head was just this flat piece, whereas he now has a fully formed head. So that works out. Articulation-wise, he does a little bit better due to the fact that he has a turnable head. Unfortunately, it is very stiff, so we've turned it the one way. It can go the other. It is on a bit of a hinge, so it can be rocked. But otherwise, the rest of it is more or less the same. We'll go through the motions just to prove it. Spread the legs apart. He lacks the thigh cut, so it was too good to be true. He lacks the thigh cut. Then we can do the rest with the leg, but you can't twist his thighs around. Probably for the best, considering how big those things are on him. Alright, brief second here while we flip the other Long Haul back into his unceremonious dump truck mode. Since of his famous line in the cartoon, fussing about how he didn't sign on to be a dump truck. There we go. Now, to transform him, we pull his arms out a bit at the shoulder. And then you will rotate the arms at the shoulder, so he's doing an I surrender look. Turn his arms at the elbow, so the extra protrusions point outwards. Then they want you to fold his head down. And then you can fold his arms at the shoulders. With they also want you to bend them at the elbow so that they come together like so. That way it gives the signs of forming a dump truck. Then we come down here, you spread his legs apart. We fold out this little piece here. Bring the legs down again, and we come back here and we fold out the rear wheels. This was a nice feature. Then we start doing some shifting of the body. Unhook it there. And also try to make sure that it folds out separately instead of staying with the legs. He is a little bit on the complicated side to transform. And of course in here we got some bits to fold outward. Unfortunately I need a small screwdriver, so excuse me. Okay, I was wrong. We didn't need the small screwdriver yet, but we will later to get these black pieces shifted. But at any rate, you get him shifted so that the legs fold over and connect like so. And then you can fold up the hip shield like so that it basically rests against the back of the truck, like that. And again, we have another one here where the robot mode is strong, but the vehicle mode isn't as much. I mean, while the dump truck mechanism was pretty useless on the original, you at least had an empty dump bed. So it did have some serviceability, whereas on here you don't have it. And since there's nothing that connects the legs to the rest of the truck, it does feel a little flimsy here in the middle. So, not quite as good as it could be. Alright, we gotta pause and get the last one now. And then lastly here we have Mixmaster. And this one I'm going to say I like the G1 version better than the knockoff. I mean, the knockoff does look a little short by comparison. But of course he also has to be of a similar size so that he can form a leg with Scrapper. Of course, I also enjoy the little added accessory up the top. But I can't appreciate what they were trying to do here. He just unfortunately comes off a little thin too when you look at it here from the side profile. And again, he's got the standard articulation, like all the others have. At least in the terms of his arms. His legs, they do separate. That's always been a bit stiff, but yeah, it separates. Has the thigh cut, so yeah, he matches more or less everybody else. So I guess we can give him a bit of a pass. And we quickly change Mixmaster. There we go, that's better. Now to take a look at how to turn the modern Mixmaster. We start by bring his arms out to the side. Then kind of rotate them around so that the wheels point downward. Then we'll bend his arms at the elbow. And then we're going to fold them up at the shoulder. And the arms should now connect against the backside, like against the side of his head, like that. Press his legs together briefly, and then fold the cab over. And then there we have it. He's now in cement mixer mode. And I still gotta go with the G1 version on it here, folks. Because once again, like with Hook, Mixmaster has fake wheels, so he does not roll. Fortunately, he does have a turning cement drum. Not that it does any real practical purpose, but it's nice that it's there. And unfortunately, they give him a black grill, which is fine and dandy, but what else can be said about chrome? So there we go. We've looked at all of the vehicles. Now comes the fun part. Alright, now that we have all 6 Constructicons into their vehicle modes, they can be brought together as Devastator. Now they have a special order. They do it in a different order. They got Mixmaster as the first guy to change, so we'll go with that route. Especially since he is the simplest. It basically involves folding out the cab like so, and then bringing it up against him. Just like that. And Mixmaster is done. And the next one they do is Bone Crusher, actually. Grabbed the wrong guy. To do him, pop the treads free for a moment so that we can fold out this black piece. Get it so it brings this flat portion that was laying against him out, because we'll bring the treads back, and if it's straight, the treads will connect to it. Excuse me. And we also reach up here in the front between the treads and pull out this bar that'll clip in. Come down here, turn the forearm around, and then plug in the left hand. And then there we go. Bone Crusher is done. The third guy here is Hook. And I did warn you this one was going to be interesting. Alright, what we do with Hook is we got to pop his arms free. Because we're going to take this one over here, which would have been the left arm. You're going to fold it over so it goes underneath. And then turn the elbow so that it's covering under his face. Basically, this post points downward. And then basically you just rotate the other arm so that it is just pointing downward like so. Kind of holding him in place. Now, once we do that, we take the crane arm. You're going to fold it over, and the crane arm separates, and that forms the chest shield. And we just fold the crane hooks down to complete the look of it. I told you this would be impressive. Then now we come in here and we raise up this black piece in the middle. Get it standing up, and then turn it around to form the head. And then now we will pop the legs of the front of the vehicle open. And this is where that splitting of his waist and hip piece comes in handy, because we fold it over and around. And you'll notice there's a couple of tiny holes on the sides of the vehicle. Well, they will line up with these posts here, and they help form Devastator's shoulders. There we go. You'll see that on both sides there are some specialty holes along the sides of the vehicle. Those will be where the arms will connect. That was pretty fun. Then next we come here to long haul. I'm going to come underneath him here and get the hip shield folded out, because we're also going to bend him in half. Unfold the hip shield and get it folded upwards. So we got to fold out the legs. I'll show you that underneath here, under the cab, there is a hole, and it will line up with this post above the hip shield. Now that his legs are out of the way, we can connect that up. And then you basically spread his legs out into a full splits. Bend the legs down like so. But then we also got to get these black pieces pulled out, because these are where the legs will connect. They're a challenge because they are of a different method for connection. So this will be Mixmaster. He plugs in directly, but Scrapper plugs in a different manner, using a different type of joint, so that it allows both legs to have full articulation. You can see right here, he connects on a special bar piece that allows him to be used as a proper knee. Just unfortunately, they don't really give you anything for adult fingers to grip. So that makes it a bit of a challenge. And then now we go to Scavenger. And he's more or less done in a similar way to Bone Crusher. Open up the treads, fold the arm piece out. But his is also folded up in a different manner. But again, there's the same black bar of plastic that you reconnect the treads to. Rotate it around. Then you can plug the hand in. But then they also want you to turn Scavenger so he faces that direction. And then lastly we have Scrapper. Kind of got to fold up and out the shovel so that it points outwards. But then we also have to open up his leg, open up the rear of the vehicle, because this is where long haul connects. Now that all of them are ready, we'll start the connection process. We'll start by taking long haul. You gotta fit this bar into the holes, wedge it into one of them so he's attached, and then you can bring the other piece together to connect him. Mixmaster just has a simple hole, so you just plug him in, and then he stands pretty good. Now to connect hook in on this post underneath hook connects into this hole here on long haul. But also these two posts that are here on the back of long haul connect into this wide hole here on hook. I recommend trying to line the big one up due to the fact that it has the tendency to split. But then there's also the fact that the arm keeps moving, so the arm is probably the one you want to connect first onto the front of the dump truck. Looks more complicated than it really is. I mean, I had more trouble doing this on the first time I put him together. Then comes wedging that in. Whoops, he popped free. Let's try that again. Give us a little more room. There we go. Now it's in. Turn and around. And there we go. Now it's connected. Readjust the head a bit. Of course, we also forgot here on Scavenger to get this piece out. But then we just plug it in. Plug it in from a way that you can keep hold of it. Because it can easily fall off. It's not very sturdy. There we go. It is in. And then, of course, also we'll get the gun to complete the look. Plug it into the bottom hole here. And there we have it. This is the knockoff Devastator. Once we stop wobbling the table, he stands relatively well. Now, articulation-wise, he's not too bad. I mean, you can turn the head from side to side, and it is on a bit of a ball joint, so it will rock up and down. His arms can easily be stretched out to the side, though I wouldn't recommend that too much because it does make him a little top-heavy. You can also rotate the arms at the shoulder all the way around. You can bend his arm at the elbow 90 degrees, and it does feature something of a swivel, so you do get G.I. Joe battle grip. Like we showed earlier, the hands can be opened or slightly closed, and the thumb can be positioned. You can spread his legs apart into a full splits. Thanks to those the way the joints are set up here at the knees, he does have a thigh cut on both legs. You can raise his legs up at the hips, but not very far. And you can bend him at the knees, about 90 degrees. Well, not quite 90 degrees. So the leg articulation's a little limited because the The hip shield here only allows it to fold inward for transformation. It does not have any give to allow it to bend. So that's how he looks. But let's compare him to the original Devastator. Of course, thanks to these old launchers, he lost his hand while we were getting him ready. There we go. Hopefully he'll hold on to it for the final few moments of the video. And as you can see, he's almost as big as the original, just not quite as imposing. But since he's a product of China, let's compare him with another Chinese Devastator. Right here on this side, we will put in the Blockies Devastator that we reviewed last week. As you can see, it does stand taller than the Blockies one. But again, it's also not quite as imposing. A lot of it is definitely with the chest shield there, the super wing piece. It looks better on the two official toys due to the fact that it was done as a separate piece. But I do give them I will give them credit for the way they did it here, because that was an interesting idea. Definitely a bit of engineering work done to it to make it work. And in its own right, it does work. It just unfortunately throws the proportions a little bit off. But if nothing else, it still does convey the Frankensteinian appearance of Devastator. So for my final thoughts on this knockoff Devastator, hey, it's not that bad. I expected when I heard I was getting a knockoff Devastator, I was expecting it to be garbage. I'll tell you that straight up and honestly, folks. I expected it to be because a lot of the knockoffs that are made, especially of Transformer characters, a lot of them are crap. Because they don't put in the effort and they tend to break with relatively little effort. But this one, it's not bad. It's not perfect. I will not say that it's perfect, because if you've been paying attention throughout the video, we have mentioned of several flaws in him, and some of the appearances just aren't the greatest. The final form, like we're seeing here right now, it's not the greatest, especially with the way the Super Wing came out. But it is still a serviceable Devastator. It still has the look of being a cobbled together machine. And in the long run, it really doesn't look all that bad. He is a rather impressive looking figure, and certainly if you can't find yourself getting any of the other two Devastators standing here with him, he'd be a serviceable